going to get started. Welcome to our conversation. This is Tuning into Pride, a roundtable discussion with LGBTQ music industry creators and professionals. My name is Bogan. I'm the head of third-party partnerships at the Mechanical Licensing Collective. The MLC is a new organization in the United States responsible for administering a new blanket license to support music creators and publishers. This is a part of our cultural partnerships initiative to engage and empower music creators and professionals and publishers through the lens of the LGBT community. This conversation is a special conversation during during the Pride Month. We think that engaging with creators and professionals at the intersection of LGBTQ cultural issues and our work as creators and professionals is an important time. So I'm very excited about this panel. We have a very diverse panel of music creators and songwriters and professionals. And I'm going to start with introducing them one by one and allowing them to come onto camera and to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with my co-moderator, Ryan Aceto. And Ryan, if you want to. Great.
Welcome, everyone. Yes, thanks for having me. My name is Ryan Aceto. I head up a record label, an indie record label called PG Records. I've worked in the music business for about 12 or 13 years now, representing mostly LGBTQ artists. Really excited to be on the panel today and get into some good discussion, some good trouble.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm gonna just follow my screen here and start with the next person next to me, which is Mila Jam.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Mila Jam. I am a pop recording artivist. That means artist and activist, singer, songwriter, dancer, entertainer, choreographer, and just lover of all things art, music, and entertainment. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm very excited to talk about the industry that we're in.
Thank you, Mila. Next, Muzzy Bear.
Hi, everyone. I'm Muzzy Bear, Dan hacker, Detroiter, disco house producer. My pronouns are he and him or his, and I'm very excited to be here.
Next up, Cami Payton.
All right. Hey, my name is Cami, and I am an alt pop singer-songwriter. I'm from San Diego originally, but currently living in Los Angeles. And yeah, also lover of all things music, entertainment. Sorry, there's a trash truck outside of my house, but yeah.
Thank you, Cami. Next up, Annie.
Thank you, Dae. Thanks for having me, you and Ryan both, and a special thanks to Chris and everyone at the MLC for putting together this amazing event. I'm really excited to be a part of this today and amongst so many amazingly talented people in the industry. My name is Annie Brin. My pronouns are she, her. I am currently the Senior Vice President of Publishing Administration at Warner Music Group based in Nashville. I also sit as the chair of Warner's first ever LGBTQ employee resource group, which was formed by Nashville-based employees. And I also am the executive sponsor of our local Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Annie. Ryan Sky, come on camera.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Sky and DJ producer, and I'm also a radio host. I have my own show called Life Rhythms. It's a personal growth radio show where I have other music artists on and we feature their music and we talk about personal growth topics related to the song. I make dance music. I'm based in Los Angeles and very excited to be joining this panel.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up, Julian King, join us.
Hey guys, I'm Julian King. Some of you may know me from The Voice. I kind of live in the R&B pop space. My pronouns are him and his. And I'm real hyped for this. This is my first time kind of being a part of something like this with my people. So I'm excited.
Next up, John Duff.
Hello, I am John Duff. I am a singer, songwriter, director, and I am happy to be here with all of you.
Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon Stansel. I'm a singer-songwriter from Nashville, Tennessee. I see we have a lot of people from Nashville. Hi, but I'm based in Los Angeles now. I write and sing country music, so I think I'm repping that genre today, and very excited to be here. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Thank you. Daphne.
Hey, what's up? I'm Daphne Willis. I was in Nashville, then I was in New York, now I'm in LA. I'm a songwriter, producer, vocalist, recording artist as well. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Taylor Henderson.
There we go. Hi, y'all. My name is Taylor Henderson. I use the he, him pronouns. I am the digital director of Pride.com. I write a lot about pop culture, LGBTQ pop culture, celebrities, and music, especially just because I love it so much. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about music.
Excellent, thank you. So as you can see, I think we have a very diverse, great looking panel, and I'm excited to have the conversation. So we're gonna kick it off with just straight to the most interesting topic, which I think for a lot of LGBT people is a topic that can sometimes be sensitive, but also can be empowering, which is the coming out story. And we don't have to go into the coming out story, it's really up to you, but I really wanna know about how coming out has, or if it has affected or contributed to your music, has affected your career in any way, or have changed your perspective anyway. So whoever wants to start, you can start right after me. For me, it's interesting. I've been in the music industry in some capacity for from third generation. My father was in the music industry. His parents were in the music industry. So it's been in our. I kind of grew up in the music industry, but I also grew up as an aspiring artist out of Cleveland, and was in sort of had a trajectory as a R&B singer, and that came with a certain image and limitations. So eventually, when I pivoted into representing artists and stopped being an artist, I maintained my sense of kind of closure with representing other R&B and hip hop artists, a culture that comes with a lot of challenges in terms of the LGBT and our sort of growth in the Black community in general, the church within our community, a lot of issues that has been around for many years. My family is a very church-driven family and so forth. Lucky for me, though, my parents were very open, and eventually I was able to be encouraged through some of my siblings, my step sibling, to eventually take that step and come out. But I did it in the flair way of coming out during my mom's wedding, not at the actual wedding ceremony, but during the week of festivities. So I had to make a grand statement, if you will, but it wasn't this huge production. It was just making that known. And since then, realized from that point forward that my parents were very supportive, my siblings were supportive, and I realized that I limited myself a lot in my career and a lot in just who I was by thinking that by coming out it would be difficult. But I know my story is not like most people's. A lot of people have a much more challenging coming out path, but I realized that I was much more hard on myself than I received once I actually came out. So I'll pass the baton to someone who'd like to talk about. Mila.
Yeah, I felt like someone, as a Black trans woman in music and entertainment, my journey has been very pivotal to learning how to love myself and just be true and authentic to who I really am. And I entered music about 10, 11 years ago. I'm a theater actress. I'm a choreographer, and I've always loved music and wanted to record my own music. And after touring, I just realized that I only have one life to live, and I really want to just focus on the things that make me happy and that I'm passionate about. At the very beginning, I kind of thought that I might be stealth. And that was an interesting journey because I was working with someone that wanted to be my manager at the time when I first started out, and they were very toxic and just not good for me. And it luckily did not last, and it did not go very far. And once I freed myself from that situation, sort of thinking that I would just be under the radar, it was like, music is about honesty, and I think music is about connecting with people. And a producer once told me that the best way to connect with people is to tell them something truthful, or to tell them something that you don't want them to hear. I write pop music. I love pop music, R&B music, dance music, house music. And yes, you can write about something fun and free, and just having a good time, but we're storytellers. And so what better way to connect with my audience and people by telling my story that I actually never really heard of, which is what it's like to be a Black trans woman, what it's like to date, what it's like to write music about my experiences, and my journey through finding love and loving myself. And that's pretty much my overall message in my music, is about self-love and identity and authenticity. And that is the reason I feel unapologetic about it. I think we're in a time where we can just thrive in our own spaces, and that we don't necessarily have to live up to what a label wants or a label is looking for. We can kind of create our own lanes. And I've obviously had a dream to always work with a major label, but I'm just learning to be in my element, and I'm learning to speak to the people and speak to my heart. And I think that's where I will flourish best.
Anyone else like to share?
Sure. Going off what Mila said, which by the way, is super inspiring. I had not a similar situation, but when I came out, I was a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't come out till I was 24, which I guess is not that late, but still I spent many, many years like questioning my sexuality and just denying it for a really long time. So when I finally came out and accepted being gay, it felt like the first time that I finally felt true authenticity, which naturally then translated to me chasing that feeling anytime I was writing lyrics and music. And just like you were saying, we're storytellers. And I always say that, sorry, my cat is joining, but I always say that I feel like the most loved art is the most authentic. So I'm always now trying to be my most authentic self, but I wouldn't have known what that meant until I came out and was like, oh, wait, this is Cami. So it really revolutionized my creative process. Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautifully said, Cami.
Thank you.
Does anyone else, do you feel that coming out has affected your creative sense in a new way? I mean, I know both Cami and Mila just kind of highlighted that, but has anyone else, are there stories that you've been able to tell? Actually, I actually want to pass the baton probably over to Ryan, because I think Ryan Aceto, because I think our next topic sort of relates in terms of creation.
Yeah, I could also add something to, just from my perspective. Obviously, I'm not creating the music directly, but it's just been exciting to me, similarly to what you said, Cami, about feeling that once I sort of seeing the value in our stories and seeing the value of what I can bring to the table, even on the business side of things, when I'm representing artists or advocating for artists, knowing that my story and my experience is not just accepted, but actually really important and valued. And that if I can then help an artist be even more authentic, tell a more authentic story, that's really exciting to me. So I hear all of you, and I feel the same, and hopefully you all have people in your life that are doing that kind of partnership, that kind of partner for you on the business side. But kind of in that vein is, I'm really curious, I know this got brought up in our sort of pre-panel discussion, but Dan or Muzzy Bear, you had mentioned about in your writing and in your working with other artists about pronouns and gender coding and sort of the slang associated with a lot of writing. How have you all either pivoted in the way that you use pronouns and gender coding and slang in your writing? How do you bring that to the table and try to encourage people to think about that in your writing? Yeah, we'd just love to hear what you all think about that.
Well, for me, I just think that, when I was growing up and listening to, you name the genre, I think a lot of music is, or if not all music, is historically very heteronormative. And I think that comes with a lot of like men singing like, "Hey girl, I see you on the dance floor," or like women saying, "Yeah, dude, make me feel uncomfortable when you offer me a drink at the bar. Yeah, guy," And I think that, for me, as I've gotten into the space where I'm producing and writing music that's disco house music, which is traditionally very queer, rooted in gay culture, I think that, something that I kind of took a step back from and realized is that my place in this space is to make the experience very inclusive for everyone, whether that's someone at my show or just someone listening at home or someone singing along. And I don't feel comfortable when I'm listening to so-and-so rap artists, talking about all of the girls they're getting, and I'm like, I don't do that. I don't go out and, I don't live this heteronormative lifestyle. Why couldn't we just be more ethereal? And, I think that using non-gender specific pronouns not only is kind of dismantling this system of historically heteronormative music, which is a space for everyone, but also makes everyone feel more included. And I think that, it's just something that I've tried to put into practice, and using like you or yours or we or, they or them. And I just think that being non-specific makes it applicable to everyone. And I think that that's something that has really become a place of value for me in my writing.
I guess, has anyone found similarly, though, that they really do want to stress either, same-sex pronouns or different pronouns, or have you felt the need in your writing and your music to really put that out?
I'll speak on that. So my first album, I was doing the we, you, us type thing. And it worked great. I mean, people loved the music, but I still felt like people didn't really get it. And I believe that there's a way to be able to speak from the same sex perspective, but also just be inclusive. It's like when I think about like Beyonce records, like I'll never know what it means to have a kitty cat or a freakum dress, but like I'm still able to relate to it, because when I feel that inner, want to come out, then I put on that I put on that record. And
Yes,
my writing has since changed, because now in the project that I'm going to be releasing by the end of the year, it's like more gender specific. And I think my own personal task has been to try to do that so that the lines aren't blurred, because it's kind of like, well, if Ariana Grande can do it, then why can't I do it? Because we listen to Ari's music, and I'm sure Ari's going to listen to our music. That's where all their inspiration comes from anyway. And I feel like it's important for us to do that, because I don't want it ever to get blurred, and for us to kind of like not take that mantle of owning our shit. Are we allowed to curse on this? Sorry. Yeah, so it's been interesting over the pandemic, as I've driven more into the whole talking about boys space. And I think for all of us, I don't know if you guys can relate, but no one, like when we were taught to songwrite, it was giving very much boys talk to girls and girls talk to boys. And if you don't talk to that, then that's what that is. So it was uncomfortable for me. And I think that's why I kind of used the cheat code, not to say that Muzzy Bear, you're using a cheat code of we, us, and all of that. But like, it was more comfortable for me to say, you get on my nerves, but I still love you, instead of like, boy, F you, because you were it felt like it was easier for me to do that and then move into the space. but it's still uncomfortable sometimes. It's just a hump that I feel like we as artists have to get over, because they don't teach teach Black boys how to love other Black boys. So I'm sure you guys can relate in many spaces that you guys are into.
I wanted to add something to Julian's comments. It's interesting because I think that when you're telling stories with we and us and you, it will translate across the board. And I think that's successful. I think that's wonderful. And I think that you adding in he, him, boy, at the drop of a dime anywhere in a song adds the salt and the pepper, and it gives it that extra seasoning. But like, I think we're in a place now where I'm not saying it's expected now, but like, it's so accessible and it's so not a big deal. Like there are moments, like it's interesting and different for me because as a trans woman that identifies as on the binary, straight identified, I'm a woman and I date men, my vocabulary surrounds the vocabulary that's already there. And so the way I try to play with that is when I write songs about learning to look in the mirror and love yourself regardless of how you identify. I feel like that's part of my contribution to being, expressive, because I don't date women and I don't identify as gay. But I think that's what's beautiful about the time we're in now is like, I'd hope to hear a track of yours where you just drop like, boy, you getting on my nerves, or however you want to write it. And it wouldn't be foreign to me. It wouldn't be different to me. And I think that the last note I want to say is I think that the icons that we look up to that are cis normative, maybe female divas or all of that stuff, there are so many LGBTQ people behind those women and behind those icons that I feel like we need to be in the forefront. There's so many talented and amazing artistic LGBTQ people putting together cis heterosexual artists to make them shine. I'm like, no, I don't want to teach so-and-so how to dance. I don't want to just write for so-and-so. I want to express this and be the artist so that little kids like us can see us thriving and not just be like, they just want to be like Ariana Grande. No shade to Ari, because I love Ari, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd love to add something. The first thing, I think the main problem that comes to mind for me is when LGBTQ artists feel stifled by having to not use pronouns. My first immediate thought was Sam Smith, who came out the gate, not using any pronouns ever, and had this massively popular song with Stay With Me, and that kind of became their thing. And then now they're saying they kind of felt trapped in that expression of who they were. And it's so cool now to see how they are, using he and pronouns and are non-binary now. And I think that sucks that they felt stifled by that. And I also think about, I just talked to the Aces, who is a rock band last year. And they, this is still happening. Like Sam Smith's was 2013, but the Aces just kind of came into popularity in 2019. They're young, they're three out of four of them are queer. And on their first album, they felt a lot of pressure to not use any pronouns because they wanted to appeal to this massive audience. And they said that was like, I don't want to say painful, but it was kind of upsetting to them because they feel like, the whole thing about music is honesty and wanting to express how you feel and, sing about girls if you want to. And they felt like they couldn't do that. And so this album was kind of a rebellion against that. And I don't know, the last thing I'll say about that is I think about how happy the first time I heard like a boy singing about a boy and a song was Troye Sivan in 2015 on Blue Neighborhood, and how magical that was for me in my coming out journey. It's so meaningful to me. So I just think, I just think that as long as LGBTQ artists don't feel stifled by not using pronouns and aren't pressured in any way by the label or their manager, producers, anything, because I think there is a lot of pressure to not use pronouns to try to appeal to a wider audience.
Could I say something?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say something real quick, just to go off of that, and also just with using the they, we pronouns, like Dan was saying, I think I can't wait to just tell my stories without it not really mattering at all for anybody, straight, gay, trans, it doesn't matter, for it to just be about the story and how the music makes you feel, not about what pronouns you're using, like that to me is like the ultimate end game. And I think a lot of it is tied up in, like Dan was saying, this kind of misogynistic culture that is driven by people needing to feel like, you know, you're telling a story of a girl and a guy. And unfortunately, like, you know, the way we do treat our women now is not really great in pop culture. Like, it's not great. And guys are expected to be this like super hyper masculine thing. And those extremes, this hyper masculinity and hyper femininity, to me are what drives that, like, that people think they're supposed to, like, that those are even what those words mean. Like, that's not even what those identities really are. Those identities are whatever you decide they are. But we have labeled them like for centuries, and now we're just kind of stuck in this place where, you know, those are that's what you do and that's what you use. And if you do anything else, it's somehow like belittles the message behind your story in some way, which is really sad. I think, to me, like, the ultimate goal is to not even, I write about, you know, I write what I know. I write a lot for like film and TV, which is very neutral. So I've done kind of like a little bit of everything where there is like my own story. I don't shy away really from anything. But then I also do a lot of film and TV and like ads and stuff like that, which is great. Like, it is a lot more neutral. You know what I mean? That's what I was going to say.
But do you think that there's, we've seen some progress obviously in pop. You know, we have artists like you mentioned, Troye Sivan. You have, you know, artists like Todrick Hall, who's doing full productions and heels and makeup and hair. But and obviously before him, there was a whole you know, sort of niche industry that has sort of created the pathway for him. But we're still behind in other genres. So Brandon, I'm going to call on you because you represent a genre that is still in that evolution phase and still have a ways to go. And like, how do you see yourself fitting into this story, being passionate about a genre and a culture that is still have quite a ways to go versus, you know, your pop counterparts who are, I think, much further along?
Yeah, you know what? I've been kind of telling people recently that I feel like it's kind of a mixed bag, especially in the country space, because everyone's doing it differently. Like, you've got people that had careers and then, you know, came out, and you have got people like me that are just like pulling the wagon uphill with their teeth. You know, I came out and then started making music. You got people that have made careers for themselves and then come out. And I feel like we're all kind of these necessary pieces to push country into a more inclusive and accepting space. And I feel like it's a really fun and exciting time to be a part of this genre because it has changed so much in just the past 5 years, to where, you know, places like the ACMs and CMT are making like pride playlists and things like that. And we have like really successful queer artists now. So I obviously think there's a long way to go, but I think that there's been a lot of progress. And in terms of, you know, this conversation of songwriting and, you know, whether or not we're using, you know, the inclusive pronouns, or if we're speaking like, we're writing very specific to our own experience and what that looks like. I feel like it's like this transitory time, and I really appreciate, you know, what Daphne was saying about just wanting to like be in this space where it doesn't matter, but we're just not there yet, like, because it matters to a lot of people for some reason. So for me, I just feel very appreciative of the people that play their part. You know, if you are like Muzzy Bear and you like, you really want to write that way, I think you swing that way. If you are of the mindset that you're like, I've never heard of a man singing to a man and I want to write boy in this song because I've never heard that before, and that like just invigorates me as a human being, as a queer person, as a musician, I think that's important too. I just feel like we're living in this kind of like transition phase, to where we're moving to this place where, you know, where hopefully it doesn't matter. But right now, I think I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it in a lot of respects. And country is kind of like prime time. Like, you know, like I said, everyone feels like they're doing it their own way. And I don't know, I feel like that's pretty exciting, and I'm excited to be part of it.
I think that all the industries are just as behind as country music. I don't think that country is like specifically far behind pop music. You name people like Todrick Hall, who've had amazing success that they've built for themselves on YouTube, but they're not on the Billboard Music Awards. They're not getting write-ups in these things. They're not mainstream at all. People outside of our bubble don't know these people still. So they're not getting the platform, even though they're proving that they can bring in the numbers. So I think that there's a lot of work to do all the way around with gay artists in every single one of these industries. A lot of the people who did get famous are not intimidating in their presentation, in their performance, in their lyric. They're sad, they're vulnerable. There is a thing that the white man, whoever's running this thing, is saying, yeah, we'll let these ones in, because they're not scared. They're not going to disrupt the system. They're going to come, they're going to sing about being sad, and then it's over. We don't have to see their heels, their belly shirt. We don't have to deal with all their shit. So I have such a mixed feeling about it, because I've come into this and presented as extremely gay when I didn't have to. From my first song, which was called Girly. I write whatever pronouns I feel like, whatever I think is the catchiest thing. And I go into meetings all the time and they say, sorry, no. I saw I have hot boys have feelings too, where I'm referring to myself as a boy. They said, that's too gay. So we can't push this one. We can't put this one on the thing. But I'm not singing about a boy, I'm singing about myself. But because I call myself hot, it's gay. There's so much work to do across the board. So I just wanted to throw that in. And congrats to Brandon, though, for being in that industry and pushing it in country, because they need it. Thank you.
And I think just to piggyback off of what John and Brandon were saying, was that it's important now more than ever. You know, we're talking about a time where we are finally being included in any way. I feel like there is at least a welcoming energy to the point where like we can have this group together talking about these things, but there is still so much disrupting that needs to happen. And I think that there's still, like, even in dance music, it's still a very cis het genre. Like the guys on stage, the biggest DJs are all straight white guys. Like there's a documentary on Amazon specifically about how women are underrepresented. There's like one female headliner at all touring, period, maybe two. And I think
absolutely
that, you know,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think across the board, this is not exclusive to genre. And I think that it's finally at a point where we can get together and like uplift each other and pat each other on the back for the work that's been done and help each other continue the work, because we are the ones that are finally, you know, there are a few that, as John was saying, like got let in, so that now the rest of us can rally behind those people and say, well, we're here too, what about us? And really, you know, make something happen for our community as a whole.
I want to shift the conversation a little bit in regards to, because I think you obviously have all made great points in regards to, you know, across the industry, across the genre, there's work to be done. Let's talk about collaborations and your work collaborating with other creators, specifically straight or cisgender creators, and how that, has there been, just tell me your experience, has there been challenges? Are there examples of where, you know, you wanted to, you know, create a certain way and your collaborator wanted to create a different way and it didn't work out? Or has there been magical collaborations that you didn't necessarily think was going to happen? But we'd just love to hear, you know, thoughts on collaborations with you know, your counterparts.
I've got some kind of an interesting perspective. I identify as gender fluid, and growing up, always have had like kind of, it exists in this kind of in-between world where like I have like really close girlfriends, but like, you know, like kind of not totally there with that, like the same. And then I like have really close like guy friends that still kind of just not always like had a really hard time like finding like my people, you know. And then I grew up in Chicago, and I lived in the city for a long time, where there's a huge, amazing gay community. And really, really flourished there and found myself in that community. And then I moved to Nashville and I was there for 7 years and did a lot of songwriting. And it was always really interesting to me because like, as a gender fluid person, some days I feel more feminine and sometimes I feel more like masculine. And when I would go into a session and I'm with like a bunch of dudes, like I'll sometimes like pull things, or like I feel like they say things around me or to me that they would never say in front of like a girl, you know, and the same for girls with the guys. So it's kind of been this really unique positive thing, as difficult as it has been, but it is a positive thing to be able to kind of like get a little peek behind the curtain of like both of those worlds and be able to kind of incorporate it and also like add to it from the other side of the perspective, like when you're having those conversations in a co-write and you're like going super deep on something to, you know, be able to hear it and relate to it and also bring the other side of it to it too, has been really interesting for me.
I wanted to add something to that too, that I haven't really worked with anyone because if there was an issue, we didn't work together. And I know that there are a lot of people who say things behind my back when they find out that I'm a trans woman, because I'm not assumingly trans or always noticeably trans. And so that, you know, I kind of just take that with a grain of salt and just believe that what's meant for me is meant for me. But what you just said is real talk, you know, Daphne, it was great. Like I'm learning that the industry, so like maybe aside from politics, like the music industry is like probably the most toxic, misogynistic industry like in the world, like even more so than film and TV, because it really is all predicated on hierarchies and status and control. And you have a lot of these cis white male producers who control everything. They control percentages, they control the masters and music and all this stuff. And then you have honest, hardworking artists that are femme presenting or female getting like manipulated all the time. And then the dynamic shift is so strenuous. It's just really crazy to see that. So I find it hard, and I love what some of John said. Hi, John, by the way. I love what you do. But like some of the stuff that he mentioned is just like, it's just across the board. It's not like anyone feeling further behind. Maybe there are some differences with country music and with pop music or dance music, but we're all kind of clamoring. And I think what we're doing as LGBTQ artists is just creating and kind of hoping for the best, if I can say that. And like, wanting like, you know, a huge label to represent us or to pick us up and to put us out there. It's basically picking something that someone wants to feed to the masses. And if they don't see, you know, LGBTQ people as the thing they want to share with the world, they're going to continue to just perpetuate what's already there, which is the cis, straight, hetero, normative stereotypes. And I don't know how this crashes. I don't know how we crash the system. I don't know how we change that. I feel like the only way I can change it is by being me and just living out loud and just being visible as much as possible. And I think like the Todrick Hall mentioned, it's crazy because Todrick Hall is mainstream to me. Todrick Hall may not be on, you know, Warner Brothers Music, or may not be on Sony or, you know, Island Def Jam, but like Todrick Hall is best friends with Taylor Swift. Todrick Hall does show up at the VMAs. They may not be highlighting him specifically, but he's in an arena that is creating a space, I think, for artists like ourselves that we haven't really seen before, but he's done it himself. We've done these things ourselves. And so we don't just have someone ushering us into the world and being like, look at this person, you know? That's my thought.
I think that's I don't know if I interrupted someone. I think that's
No,
like
you're good.
the issue is that like labels, I mean, it's kind of happening right now in general, because like it's like labels are only kind of attracted to like social media numbers these days, it feels like, and how much engagement you're getting, blah blah blah. But like it especially feels like if you're an LGBTQ artist, you are not going to get a chance taken on you unless, and I mean, Todrick Hall is like, I mean, I don't know how many straight cis people know Todrick Hall, but
a lot of straight cis kids knows Todrick Hall. A lot of a lot of young kids do know him, but that's like, it's not like the people who, I know what you're saying though. Yeah.
But I also wanted to say that he built this platform for himself, and he's independent, and he works so hard, and he's on
So hard.
all these TV shows, and he's just constantly working. And I can't imagine, like how different his trajectory might have been if a label had been like, hey, we're going to take this chance on you. Like so many unknown, 17-year-old girls get all the time. And
yeah,
I mean, that's just how the industry, I don't know. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I also think it's important to value what it means to be independent, because being independent allows you much more creative flow and opportunity. A lot of times we talk about, and I've been on both sides of the independent and major world, representing talent, independent talent, and representing talent signed to major labels. And there could be a totally different trajectory. I think you made a good point, Taylor, that there could be a totally different trajectory if you go, potentially, not you don't know. It also depends on who's on your team, right? We can't, there's not this blanket understanding of what it means to be independent, or this blanket understanding of what it means to be major or signed to a major. Also, it really depends on who's on your team. Who signed you? Which label are you with of the majors, or even which label are you with in terms of independent? You may be completely independent and don't have the resources to do the type of marketing that one would need. There's a lot of factors, so I don't think that signing with a major or staying independent is the sole factor of whether someone will be successful or not. It really depends on your team. And to that point, I want to invite you and Annie to the conversation around team and what an example of what a major company is starting to do to be more intentional in recognizing not only the LGBT people who work at the organizations who have a connection to LGBT artists, and beyond just like in the music, but also having this sort of cultural understanding of what they've gone through in their lives just to pursue their passions, and that somehow can translate into having that champion internally, having that advocate internally. You and I both representing major companies. I'm head of third-party partnerships at an organization, and we're having this conversation specifically because we wanted to make sure that we had this conversation. So I think that there is a movement internally at organizations, also by LGBT people, to say we need to make sure that there is a platform for shifting the culture internally, so that does create a bridge and opportunity for LGBT creators and LGBT young music professionals who want to pursue those careers. It may not necessarily have the impact right now today for artists like you guys who need those bridges to be laid out now, but we're seeing examples. Lil Nas X, and we've seen examples with Todrick on the independent side. We've seen examples with other artists that are starting to get that visibility. Again, you mentioned Troye Sivan before. So there isn't a mass, I think, of push, but there are examples of, okay, there must be someone internally or someone's internally that are saying, like, we need to figure this out. Now, that's not everywhere, right? There's still going to be examples of you had meetings and got no's because of who you are, right? Those people may not have been, counterparts or advocates or people who actually wanted to support. But they don't necessarily represent the entire ideology of an organization. So to that, I want to talk to you, Annie, about some of the initiatives that you're working on, and how that impacts your organization.
Yeah, for sure. I came out 15 years ago, so I was very new to the music industry. In the last 4 years, I'm now in a leadership role, and I feel like it's my responsibility, not just to create a safe space, but to be a cultural ambassador. And so, really, since day one, I've had the support of everybody above me, and from my team and the business to really take the lead on some things. And so, being based in Tennessee, especially, over the last couple of years, there have been so many discrimination laws passed. And fortunately, I'm so grateful that I work for a company that, in the last 3 years, I've steered the company's stand against these discrimination laws for 3 consecutive years, where, all of the executive team, they've signed within, 5 minutes will respond and say, we absolutely want to sign this open letter that the LGBT chamber has put on for everyone. So we're partnering with the chamber. We're also, not just doing things behind the scenes, but we're speaking out publicly now. Every press release related to these discrimination laws, there's always been a representative from Warner Music Group, either from Warner Chapel Nashville, Warner Music Nashville, or the Center of Excellence where I work in the downtown Nashville office. And we're speaking out saying, these bills send a very clear message that LGBTQ artists, songwriters, and employees are not welcome, and that's not what we stand for. Our success and growth of our business depends on the ability to recruit and retain a best-in-class diverse workforce. And so over the last 3 years, it's been really remarkable to see a company who has taken a stand. And there have been a lot of other companies in the music business that have signed the letter, but just this last year, we had the president of Warner Music Nashville make this statement publicly at a press conference, and we were the only people in the music industry doing that. And so not only did our president of Warner Music Nashville speak at that press conference, but he also really took the lead in getting nearly 40 other companies based in or with a significant presence in Tennessee to send letters to Tennessee lawmakers to oppose a number of these bills that are currently being passed. So it's I can say for Warner, there's still so much work that we have to do, and it's for us, this has just been this year. It hasn't been the month of June. I think the important part of what we need to do is really, it's so important that we create safe space for our employees, especially in a state like Tennessee, but that we have these conversations all year long, not just during the month of June.
Yeah, thank you. I think I would love to hear, kind of piggybacking off that, if anyone else is if there's something specific that they involve themselves with regularly, and as far as being agents of change and activism. Obviously there's a few people here that incorporate that into sort of their daily work, but maybe this is also just a chance for you to highlight some of these programs and initiatives that people watching or listening can find out more about and join.
My EP, Homo Sapien, is out tonight, and 10% of all proceeds go to Future Perfect Project, which is a arts funding program for disenfranchised LGBTQ youth. So I think that me as a totally independent artist making a step to say I'm giving 10% of anything I make to this organization is a challenge to the bigger names, to all the people. So that's my contribution this week.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I'm in West Hollywood, and what I did several years ago when the Marriage Equality Act passed, because I work in music royalties for many years, and I help creators and professionals understand how their music royalties and their rights are impacted by various whether it's contractual or legislative changes. Obviously, legislative change recently is the passing of the Music Modernization Act and the creation of the blanket license that we administer at MLC. But several years ago, we passed the Marriage Equality Act. I remember, I don't think wherever you were in the United States when that passed, it was like a whole pride that day, and everyone was out celebrating. And then within weeks, I created a panel, a workshop called Pride Music, where I wanted to break down the implications of what it means to have your marriage federally recognized and how that will impact potentially your royalties if you get a divorce, for example. Things that a lot of artists never thought about because it was just never in the concept that your assets could be affected that way because our marriages were not recognized that way. So I went into a number of issues, not just marriages, not just divorces, but also things such as estates and whatnot. So I did a whole panel or a workshop series on this thing that we're all excited about. And then obviously it's been several years, and I've had friends who've been divorced, and now they're like, oh wait, what happened to my royalties? Why is half of it being affected? So there's that was, I think, an interesting exciting thing for the community, but also a reality check that there's a lot that just wasn't understood. I think for me, from a charity and standpoint, I think Mila mentioned it before in regards to like just being authentic to yourself because there's someone potentially younger than you, or because you didn't have that someone to look up to, you have to be that for someone else. For myself as an educator, as a music industry professional, as a Black man, someone who's an advocate for music creators, it's important that my identities are acknowledged, because there are younger aspiring music industry professionals who cannot relate to other people who are in the industry and established. When I was getting my degree in music industry administration, when I was studying this, there wasn't a one person I could look up to see that looked like me, right? My white straight friends in my class could look to Jimmy Iovine, could look to could look to Daniel Ek on Spotify, could look to other established music industry professionals in different sectors across the field, from a digital service to a label to a publisher, and say that's my future, because I can see that future has happened for someone like me, and you can almost create a trajectory for that. So when I started teaching at UCLA and started getting messages from students who said, thank you for teaching, or this class is amazing, and this was great to have this representation. Even for my Black female students who had never had a Black professor in UCLA, and I didn't either when I went there and got a degree. So when I became that for them, I realized what that meant, and specifically in the music industry. And not to say there's no Black professors, there are, but there's few in our program. And being one of them, and then also being able to share different identities that they can relate to, I think is important. So I think we were a lot of us were a lot of different identities, and and it's important to understand that sort of owning those identities can be powerful, can empower someone else. And as you advance in your career, I think, Annie, you mentioned it yourself, you're in a position of leadership. I am as well. So it's almost even more important and sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? We don't want to be the token. You don't want to be, the token Black guy in the room. You don't want to be the token LGBT person in the room. You don't want to be the token, definitely the token trans person. There's, for that percentage is very low. We have a lot of work to do there, and I'm doing some work with the trans community here in Los Angeles with the housing project. But you don't want to necessarily be the token, but then you realize that there wasn't somebody like me that I looked up to, so maybe I can be that somebody else looks up to, and that's a lot of pressure. But I think a lot of you are doing that just by putting your face on this discussion right now. That visibility, having an audience, and identifying you as that person, I think is important.
I wanted to say something. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to add. So I mentioned earlier about how I have a radio show, and what I found is that on the show I mainly have, it's predominantly straight artists on the show because we don't have a lot of representation in the dance world. So I have, these major dance artists on the show, but what I found is that through having these conversations, there are these hour-long conversations where it's one-on-one, me and this artist, and we get really deep into our personal lives. And we're talking about we end up talking about our shared experiences spiritually, relationships, heartbreak, things that are very personal. And what I find is that, like, as I get to have these conversations with these other straight artists who are, on the DJ Mag Top 100, and they're touring the world, they're actually getting to have a conversation with an LGBT person. And I'm sharing kind of like, I'm being a voice for us and sharing my experience to them, that I see a lot of aha moments where they realize we have a lot more in common than what they thought. And then also their fans are tuning into the show. So it's a way for me to kind of give a voice to their fans who are used to following this artist, but they're not used to hearing our perspective. So kind of like in a roundabout way, I found that my show has been a way to bridge that gap and to bring more representation into the dance world. It's led to collaborations, and it's led to friendships. It's led to relationships with me and labels that I didn't have an opportunity to work with before. And It's just interesting that when you just kind of like some of you mentioned earlier, that it's all about truth. When you share your truth and your honesty, it really resonates with people. And even if it resonates because they can see how they can relate to you, and it humanizes our experience, helps them relate to us and connect to us. And it makes them more open to hearing our stories, to receiving our music, to wanting to work with us. So that's what I've been doing with my radio show.
I love that you said just like finding that middle ground,
Yeah.
because it's just so crazy that like when I got into the LGBTQ community, I was like, wait a minute, this is just love. Like, you know, even as a queer woman, I was like, because I had such a hard time like figuring out if I was queer, because I was like, oh, I don't fit the stereotype. So maybe I do a little more now. But anyways, so I love that. And also I've recognized this Pride Month especially that, at least for me, not only having that representation or being that representation, but also educating people and being like, hey, I know it's 2021 and you're seeing rainbow flags everywhere and you think that everything, like all the fight is over, but like there are still 69 countries where it's illegal to be gay. Like there is still death penalty against like being gay or trans or any part of the LGBTQ community. So that's been also really important to me, to like having that voice on social media. I've been recently having a fundraiser for Outright Action International, which fights globally for rights. But yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said, but crazy, 2021, still countries that it's illegal. Blows my mind.
I think as an interesting point, Cami, one of the topics, well, there's a number of topics that I went over in my Pride music workshop several years ago, and it was also touring as an LGBT artist, and you know, how touring you know, is not this, you know, there's some impact in terms of touring. Now, if you're touring internationally and you're, you know, touring into whether you're doing a festival or going to a market, and also, you know, just authenticity, you know, being yourself online, and how LGBT artists have to deal with a whole extra layer of criticism beyond the music itself, but just the online bullying and the you know, the online you know, bigotry, which is beyond just, you know, someone just getting made fun of because someone didn't like the lyrics or didn't like the video, but just who you are is a target for criticism. So there's a lot, you know, there's a lot more, I think, that LGBT artists have to mentally be prepared for as your career grows. And you know, as you know, it's like the more exposure you get, that means you're also opening up exposure to more people that simply don't like us just because we exist. And that's something you can't change. And I'm sure you all have examples of, you know, where you've had to deal with that. I want to talk a little bit about some recent projects. I know a few of you have had recent projects that come out.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had a question I wanted to ask before you moved on. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to know. I don't know. So I know Dae, Ryan, and Annie are in the industry, and it's so okay. So I think about what John was saying. I think about what Cami was saying. How like they are both two individual people using their platform, using their resources to give back to the community, and I think that we all are in one way or another, and that is awesome. I was wondering if there's a way, like, what are like people in the industry, what are like Warner Media, like what are they doing specifically to boost and support LGBTQ artists, to maybe protect them from some of it, or at least at the very least encourage them to be themselves and not hold anything back, you know? And I don't know, I just want to hear something about that in the sense of like, what are these, you know, industries, what are these corporations doing to make sure that LGBTQ musicians are feeling supported, or at least trying to?
I mean, I can't speak from a corporation perspective, but I can speak from sort of an industry business side. Our label is 100% LGBTQ artists. And from small things like our artists owning their masters to, you know, my goal of having our artists being able to collaborate and be on equal footing wherever possible in any meeting that I take. this is a smaller pool in the music industry, but our staff, how we message out our music projects, where we message out our music projects. Again, I can try to influence, and I try my best to take steps to get in touch with other bigger organizations. We do have a partnership with Warner Chappell for our artists for publishing. We do distribute our music through a major label. So I'm really focused on giving our artists, our LGBTQ artists, as much access and attention so that it is hopefully a pipeline and we can be influencing, a bigger label, the Billboard charts, those kind of things. So I can just say that's what I'm doing from this label perspective.
I can speak on behalf of myself, because I've been doing this for many years, but also on behalf of the MLC. One of the guiding principles of the Mechanical Licensing Collective is diversity and transparency. And literally this panel is one example of that, is having these conversations, taking our network and our access and introducing these faces, each of you, through our ability to do media alerts. And we've had a number of media organizations pick up this panel, like Music Connection and so forth. So, with your names and your representation, so using our resources, our audiences, via social media, via colleagues in the music industry. I'm sure of the 70-something people that tuned in, there are representatives at every major label, at every major publishing company, and other music rights organizations that are here listening to your stories. So that's what I mean by creating a platform, is we cannot necessarily be involved. I personally cannot necessarily be involved in each of your careers, but I can internally create an opportunity where the resources and access that we have as an organization can be made available to a group that represents, I think, the collective. Me personally, I'm highly involved on a one-by-one basis with a number of artists, especially in the LGBT community, given primarily advice on your careers, on your rights, on your ownership. As a matter of fact, Ryan and I just had a small meeting the other day with his lawyer. And I've had many conversations with Ryan Aceto and his assistant in regards to his roster, in regards to just, if you're gonna own your rights, making sure you're owning it properly, making sure you're administering it properly until you have the representation of a label or a publisher. I actually wrote the ebook called The DIY Musician Starter Guide to Being Your Own Label and Publisher for an organization called Creative Future, which is one of a large creator organization. And it's been downloaded thousands of times by independent LGBT creators who need to understand how to properly administer their rights. I've had many meetings with John, with your team, with Chris Bell, and so I'm advising managers of LGBT artists. I'm advising LGBT artists themselves. I'm providing guidance and support. So that's me personally, but that represents my character, and that character is acknowledged at organizations like the MLC and where I have a position of influence to be able to speak to those above me and say, we should be doing this thing. We should be doing this conversation, tuning into Pride, and we should be putting our resources behind it to make sure that the voices of our members, many of you are members of the MLC, which means you are our constituents. You are who we care about. You are why we exist as an organization to empower and to work on behalf of. So there's different ways I think that we can contribute. I'm also personally, invested into seeing LGBT music creators and music creators of color advance in their careers, because I am a former LGBT music creator of color. So I didn't have anyone like me in a position of power at a rights organization when I was trying to do what you're doing, or at least I didn't know that person because they weren't visible. So it's also important for me to be visible, to let people know, to let younger artists know that there is someone at an organization of power who knows your journey and understands your struggles, and who actually has an ability to help in some way. So that's what we're doing here at the MLC.
I'd be curious, what can, from the artist perspective, what would you like us to be doing? Like, what could we be doing more to advocate? Where do you feel like we're not pushing as much, or maybe we can redirect our efforts? I mean, I by no means feel like I have the answers and am doing all the right things. So I feel like I've got a wonderful group of artists here and people that, I would love to learn from.
I have some ideas.
Biggest
I have a
thing
few ideas.
Happened is
I think everyone has ideas.
a lot of I think the problem starts with how the industry, the companies within the industry function on a infrastructural level, and how people are signed and how people are given advances and who is chosen for those things, and the people who make up those teams, who are the A&R people at the labels, what are their experiences. And these are the people that really do dictate who is getting funded, who is on the radio, who is on the major label tours. And that's also bleeding into everything culturally, from what we see on the TV to what we hear on the radio. And it all starts with the people that they sign and the people that they essentially are putting their millions of dollars into.
Yes, Daphne, okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that that's exactly what I was going to say. Bravo to that. And I'm also looking into when it comes to signing contracts and to being involved with major players, big producers, labels, having label deals or label singles or one-offs or whatever, even when you're not signed to major labels, there's often such a conversation of this is just how it is. And I'm so overhearing this is how it is. Isn't the point to change this? And I also don't want to be scapegoated. And I don't want to be there is this tokenization that happens, especially as a Black trans woman, where there are people, listen, I always say this, it's trending, I'm not a trend. And it's fine that it's trending. But as a human and as a person that is a real artist that put blood, sweat, and tears into everything that I do, whether you're jumping on the bandwagon or not, there's a level of respect. And I think the goal for me is to work with people that want to see me win genuinely, not just want to see me win because it's the conversation and it's the topic. And so when we say things like, well, this is how the industry is, aren't we doing work to dismantle that? This is the conversation we're having with marginalization, with race issues, with, color in our country, in America. It's how are we really tearing those things down? And the people that are on the industry side, like you just said, the A&R reps, the people scouting the talent, we know the machine is the machine, but where are the people that can really ride for us and support our humanity and our work?
Yeah, I would love, such a great question from Taylor and Daphne and Mila. I feel this so much. When I was, 5-6 years ago, when I first started making music, the thing that always, I guess, frustrated me the most, because I think like any of us, we write things and we put them out into the world and we bare our souls and we hope that, maybe people like them and want to sing along. But you don't really know, right? And I think one of the things I struggled with so much was that everyone that I met that I felt like I wanted, on the industry side, I didn't know if my being queer was a barrier to entry. I didn't know where they stood. And it always felt like that was just like this weird hurdle that I had to get over, because there was no visibility as to, a Warner Music president coming out to fight against anti-trans rights in Tennessee. So I have this, knowledge that they are queer affirming in their in the institution itself. And just, I think for younger artists, just knowing that these labels, that's not a barrier for them, that they that they have structured themselves to where they, you know, have people on working in A&R, working as label reps that are, you know, not only like queer affirming and supportive, but that might even be queer themselves, you know, I think that's a game changer, especially for not only I think for artists like us, but for kind of the younger class of people coming up, just to know that they have those champions that we need, you know, we need those people on the industry side. And that we can focus on the art that we're making and not have to worry that the things that we're trying to put out into the world are going to get roadblocked or stonewalled because they came from a queer person. And so I think I love this conversation. I think it's something that I think about a lot, and hopefully something that, you know, where the tide's going to turn here soon.
Because if people aren't being represented, queer people, it's because the powers that be don't believe it's lucrative monetarily. But gay porn is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if gay porn can make billions, so can gay entertainment. So we just need to allow people to consume gay entertainment.
And I think that, you know, just to frame this in a somewhat optimistic perspective, because I think it's easy to get down on ourselves. We're all artists. So we're all very self-deprecating by nature. You know, I think that that's at least inherently part of it. But the fact that, again, I think the fact that we're here and having this conversation and having people like Dae and Ryan and Annie saying, you know, being examples of the transitional period that we're in this industry right now, and having this artist, like having the group of artists on this panel right now, and having Taylor, a journalist here, you know, I want to at least remind us and remind the people watching that this is an exciting time to at least be open to having these conversations. Because growing up, there was no representation for any of us, you know, especially me as like a pan-Jewish guy from Metro Detroit. I was like, who speaks for me? Like, who, you know, like what Dae was saying, it's like, who is the example that I can look up to in the world of being a performer or a writer or a producer? And now it's like, at least those people exist, and they are here, and they are doing work, whether it's direct work where they're having the conversations that need to be had or being the examples that need to be set, or they're just simply by existing, you know, giving someone out there the opportunity of a role model. And I think that, you know, as far as we have to go, we also can acknowledge that we have come a long way, even, you know, in the past 15, 20 years.
All right, thank you all for your contributions. We're going to shift just a little bit to Q&A in the last 15 minutes of our discussion. I'm going to start with a question that come in from, I believe it's Sarah Goff. Sarah asks, has being openly LGBT affected your success in the music industry, either positively or negatively? And how have those experiences challenged you to make more of a change and impact for artists like us? Anyone want to answer that?
I'd like to speak on that. I think that there's a lot of pressure when it comes to being an LGBTQ artist. And as I was listening to everyone talk, I want to remind us that, like, I don't necessarily think that it is just about being gay, because we've gotten over the hurdle that being gay is not going to allow us to see the Billboard. We saw it happen with a Caucasian Sam Smith, and we see it happen with an African-American Lil Nas. So we know that the goal can be achieved. I think it's important for us to realize, and I think it has shaped the way that I write music currently, is that at the end of the day, it's all about the music. If we don't have records that are competing with these girls that have seats at the tables already, we're not going to see the same results. And I think that it has shifted the way that I write, because now it's like, okay, it's not necessarily about, oh, I'm gay, see me, oh, my pride, oh, blah, 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 which, yes, is so important to who we are and how we convey our message. But I think it's important for us to remember that at the end of the day, we're competing against the single ladies. We're competing against the point of views. We're competing against these records who are already going to be widely consumed because they are hetero. But then on top of that, they're records that are worth putting money into and worth putting resources into. So it's challenged me in a way to where, like, okay, how can I use my point of view and still lead with a sense of pride, but also create music which is just as good, if not better, than some of these other artists.
I do want to say something too. Go ahead. I want to say
I
something really quick.
encourage all of us to think about that, because at the end of the day, it is a business, and it is people who are putting hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars into artists. So whether, I think we're getting to a space where it's starting to not really matter what you are, but no matter what you are, what you are still has to be good. It has to be great. It has to be consumable, digestible to not only just our communities, but all of the communities at large.
I think the last statement you said is absolutely correct, and I completely 100% agree with that. The one thing I would say is when it comes to I think we have to work you have to work where you're at. And sometimes you're not at that level yet, but people are getting to those levels where they can compete with majors or names that are household names. But also a lot of household names have amenities that we don't have. They have budgets, and they have producers, and they have the things to create single ladies. You know, Beyonce, people say Beyonce's got the same 24 hours in a day that everyone else does, but she actually doesn't, because she's probably has 40 people to make those 24 hours really work for her to her benefit. And she's taking a nap while somebody is doing something for her. And when she's not napping, she can get up and eat like a nice vegan organic salad to make sure that she's ready to present however she needs to present on the record. So some of us are out here hustling and running from thing to thing, taking the subway, carrying our own instruments, carrying our own props and bags, and teaching dancers and choreographing and directing and producing everything. And we're, I think, ultimately looking for someone to give us a hand, to give us some support if you show up for yourself and if your stuff is good.
Right. Yeah, but I also, yeah, my conversation wasn't about that, because Mila, girl, I'm in the same boat as you. Okay, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you're right with me. I know.
For someone like, you know, Felicia, who was at Columbia with Lil Nas at this point can get any goddamn thing he asks for, because he had a record that has now crossed over and has made them so much goddamn money. He literally can get anything he wants. And that's all I was kind of just speaking upon. Just like, as we are on this journey, we have to remember that, like, we're competing with these girls who have seats already, and we're trying to get seats. And in order for us to get seats, the product has to be good, or else, you know, it's like when you support someone, like, yeah, you can support someone because you want to support someone because they're an artist, but like 9 times out of 10, you're not going to go to a girl's show who's trash. You know what I'm saying? No matter what she is.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. In the in the dance world, you know, and you've kind of got these two lanes. You've got the mainstream dance culture, and you've got the gay dance culture. And it's ironic because dance music has its roots in queer culture, and then was adopted by the mainstream. And just me having worked through it and creating my own lane, the comment about the product needing to be, it's super competitive in terms of quality of product, quality of the music. And I see, you know, like if you go to Ultra Music Festival or EDC, you're not seeing representation. You're not seeing queer artists headlining. You know, I don't think it's because I don't think it's because there's homophobia going on. I think it's because the artists, well, first of all, it could be the visibility, number one, and number two, it's all about the quality of the product. And it you know, the promoters of the, you know, of these festivals feeling like it's a fit. You know, like when I go to gay festivals, the music actually hasn't changed in the past 20 years. And when I listen to like the production and the synthesizers that are used, and it's not evolving. And then yet in the mainstream dance world, it's super competitive in terms of like the sophistication of the productions and the songwriters that are being used for the songs. And I think it would be great. I think the resources is really important, that we need to find a way to help LGBT music artists have access to resources where they can put out quality of music that would get signed, and that would cross over, and that would get them, you know, and that's been my experience, like once I started collaborating and the music was good, I did start getting my music signed, and I did get it, was getting out there, and I was finding traction, but it all came down to, because just the music was good. It wasn't because I was gay or not gay. So I think that's a really important part, is finding these resources. So say queer dance artists, they're putting out music and it's not on par with the sophisticated music that's out there. Okay, what can we do to help them? What kind of programs or what can we do to teach them the new skills and give them the tools that they need, or create programs to help them get to that level so that they can compete at that level, and so that there is an even playing field, and they have a shot at getting at the table, because the music is just as good, if not better.
I think we think we acknowledge the potential, which is also great. I've been there. Most of us, I'm sure everyone in here has been there. That song is actually pretty dope that you wrote. The production is not really there. That's a demo kind of style that you probably wouldn't want to give to so-and-so, but work on that. And for me, it's all about, what are you working on? And the work never ends. So I definitely agree with you, but those are kind of the things we can share with people around our industry, our colleagues that are maybe not, there. But we're all still working on our own stuff.
Yeah, and again,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, I just wanted to add really quickly that I'm not totally sure that it's a competition in the sense of this is a business, right? And capitalism makes us think that everything's a competition. There's only room for one of us, one seat at the table. But there's room for all of you. All of you are really great artists. I've listened to almost all of you in this panel. And I think you all can find an audience, and it's out there, but you just need to have that opportunity to boost your music. And that, I think that can be done. Lil Nas X is it right now, but he doesn't have to be the only queer artist that's at the top of the charts. There can be, all the straight people are up there. Why not all of y'all? And so I think there's not just pulling up a seat to the table. There needs to be a bigger table, and everyone needs to be invited to it.
Yeah, and that was really what I was going to say is, piggybacking off of what Ryan was saying, coming from the dance world, I can have a record out. I can have my most recent single. I work really hard on the production, and I'm proud of the production and the skills that I've acquired over the 10 years of doing this. But I can go to that festival that I'm not booked at, go to the house music stage, and someone can just straight up be playing my song. And I think that, it comes with comes with the territory, and I know what I'm in for, and that, all things being equal, it is what it is. But ultimately for me, it's about uplifting each other, and not people that are more successful than me, not gatekeeping their access and their skills and the things that they've acquired beyond what what I know. And then also me doing that for other people that want to learn to do what I do, or want to be able to, talk to my manager or my booking agent or me or whatever. I think something that I started doing was just opening the floor in the Twitter space, Clubhouse knockoff kind of thing, and just letting people come in and, talk about whatever it is we want to talk about, but just giving people access. And it's been really fruitful just to connect with people that identify as my fans, or people that see me on social media and, have a question, and just not holding back and not feeling well, I have this and it's mine and I've got what I've got, and, I can't, if I share it with them, then I'm giving away a piece of what I already have. I think that especially us all coming from the same corner of the world, community wise, as musicians, as queer people, as queer musicians, as people that, are growing up in maybe the craziest time to ever be alive on this planet. It's really just about uplifting each other. And that's one way that we can force the industry to give us the equity that we deserve.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you all for giving me your time today. This has been a really great conversation. I'm going to spend this last couple of minutes just getting a quick glimpse into the rest of 2021 for each of you. So what are you working on? What's coming next? Where should people go to connect with you? So I'm just going to go across my screen, starting with Ryan Sky.
Hi, everybody. So projects I'm working on, I mentioned my radio show. It's called Life Rhythms. Radio. It's on IW Radio. If you go to my Instagram, Ryan Sky, you can access my Life Rhythms radio show. So I'm working on that this year, and I have new music coming out. So I'm excited about that. I can't say yet, too much about it, but I do have new music coming out, and I'm DJing around Southern California. So I'll be working on that this year.
Thank you. Brandon?
I have a brand new song coming out tomorrow called This Must Be the Place. It's the title track of my new EP that comes out in September. Can I say this, Ryan? I think I can. We just found out yesterday CMT is going to premiere the video for my single that just came out a few weeks ago on July 12th. So watch out for that.
Nice. Daphne?
Hey, yeah, I just had a single come out. I've put out a few singles, and then I've got an Essentials album coming out. So I've been putting music out for 8 years now, which makes me about 18. So anyways, that's coming out in July. And then I'm writing my next record. Been really excited. I live in West Hollywood, and sessions are coming back. So I've been up in the studios and not writing on Zooms anymore, producing out of my home studio, which has been really fun. That's what I'm excited about.
Cami?
I actually also recently put out a single. It's called Tired on all music streaming platforms. And I have a lot of other music in the works right now, but a lot of soon to not be so secret anymore. But yeah.
Muzzy Bear?
Well, I released a single called Do For Me not too long ago. It's on all of the streaming platforms, and shows are back, so starting to get out and play some dance parties for people, and more singles coming soon. We're starting to pitch to labels and all of that stuff, so stay tuned to the socials.
Julian?
So I am currently working on my next project. I don't have a finalized title yet, but I did release I did a soft release for one song titled All Boys Aren't Blue, which is inspired by George M. Johnson's novel, and it made it into the dramatic read with Jennifer Lewis and Dylan Burnside. So if you saw that, then that song during the credits, that was my record, and that's going to be one of the records on the project. So yeah, soon come.
John?
Hi, I'm releasing my EP, my first EP tonight at 9 in West Coast, midnight East Coast. High Heels come out last week with Tony Award-winning legend Lilius White. The video for that.
Yes, Lilius. That's my girl, my home girl.
70 years old, singing like 20.
She's really 45. She's just about to cry. I live.
And then I have the video for that coming out next week. Bunch of remixes. I have a very busy summer, and then my debut album. But we'll get there.
Love it. Mila?
I'm so excited. Lots of new music. My new single Too High is out to stream everywhere. It's independent. It's all about uplifting our community, Black and cis trans women. I have a new single that is coming out on July 23rd with the super producer Mac J and this DJ named Mads. It's called Just Sayin', and it's with Armada Records. I'm stoked about this track. It's fire. I also have a single with Angelica Ross from Pose and Ultra Nate, the diva who sang Free. We have a song called Fierce together. And we just shot the music video 2 weeks ago with Frank Gatson as the director, legendary Frank Gatson, known for Beyonce, Michael Jackson, etc. And I'm going to Chicago in about 6 hours to do Chicago Pride. And then I will be doing Market Days back in Chicago in August to perform with Angelica and Ultra for the first time.
Wow. Well, this is amazing. My industry professionals, if you want to drop any quick updates on what you're working on or your organizations are working on, Taylor?
Yes, I mean, so I write for Pride.com, so I'm exhausted right now. But normally, after I write a lot about music, usually after June, I'm going to be starting up playlists again featuring a bunch of LGBTQ artists, and I would love to talk to like all of y'all on this panel. So hit me up. We can at least chat, be friends, send me press releases, all that. And yeah, Mila, the Fear song is so good. I love that song. But yeah. So yeah, I'll just be writing. Oh, I'm most excited for festivals. I'm so excited for Lollapalooza. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Annie.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the next karaoke bar all weekend, on Broadway. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I was releasing a single. I am not. You guys are all happy about that too. At Warner, like I said, it's an all year long initiative that we're doing with DEI conversations, having partnerships with some of the labels in New York and LA, and just really ongoing education is really important right now. Huge focus at Warner. I'm also a board member of the National Independent Venue Foundation. And with live music coming back, I'm going to be much more involved in that area as well. Really developing and supporting, DEI initiatives in the live music venue world too. So that's going to be exciting.
Ryan Aceto.
We've got music coming out almost every week. Check out our Instagram, PG_records. Also really proud of the fact that the Grammy Museum spotlighted PG Records for the month of June. They had been spotlighting different major labels and chose our record label. So every Saturday we had been highlighting a different artist from our roster. This Saturday we're actually highlighting Brandon Stansel, so you can check that out. And yeah, I just wanted to say, it kind of tied back to something earlier, but if this is the first time you're hearing of somebody in the industry like myself, Dae or Annie or Taylor or anybody being an advocate and pushing for you, then I'm really happy. If it's not the first time, just keep us in mind and remember that we are out here. We are trying every day to do the things we can to help support all of you. And I would love to be a resource to anybody here, even if you just need 5 minutes to vent or hear that there is a friendly voice out there trying to work with you. So I appreciate all of you, and thank you for
Ryan, you work with my sister, Peppermint.
Peppermint. We've talked about you a lot.
That's my heart.
It's wonderful.
And last but not least, myself, just me personally, like I said, I'm constantly involved in the careers of friends who are music creators, a lot of managers I advise who represent creators. So if you have questions in regards to music rights, copyright law, music publishing, Ryan Sky can tell you, I'm always the kind of first call for a lot of friends in my network. But then also on behalf of the MLC, our organization is new. We operate operation went into effect January 1st this year. All of you who are self-published should now be members of the MLC, and you are now have contact information of someone who is in leadership at the MLC. Imagine basically having the contact information of someone to ask out for BMI. If you can call on them and ask questions about your royalties, imagine that. So we're here to represent you. It's not just like we're literally mandated to do it. I tell people all the time, like I'm mandated to help you. It's not I want to, I'm required to help you. So reach out to me, use me as a resource if you have questions about a split that you're working on with the collaborator and you need to know like how it's gonna take it into effect. When your music is played on services, I'm sure all of you have had music played on digital services in the past. Our job is to track you down and get you those royalties. So you have my phone number, you have my email address, and I'm here to be a resource, not only as a music rights executive, but also as someone who understands your journey and understands, just the challenge of the growing pains of growing as an artist. So thank you so much for your time. This was a great panel. I'm really excited for it. And happy Pride, everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Pride month. That's it. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, happy Pride.
Thank you guys so much. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, everyone.